What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a push-up tutorial. Now I know I did an introduction to push-ups way back when on my YouTube channel when I first started it, but I wanted to do a little bit of a refresher. So I know push-ups is something that I get a ton of questions on my Instagram. How to do plyometric push-ups, how to do a regular push-up, tips and tricks on how to just strengthen your upper body to eventually get a push-up. I know a lot of people struggle with getting a proper form push-up, and most of the time it is just technical based in terms of maybe your arm is in the wrong placement or your body weight's not shifted forward enough or it's too far back. These things are the kind of things that make a push-up harder than it needs to be and often why people struggle. So today I'm gonna go over the form and technique, my top tips and tricks, as well as a couple exercises that you can implement using bands or dumbbells in order to make a push-up a lot easier for you, and that way you can achieve your very first push-up and eventually multiple in a row. So let's get started. Let's help you achieve your very first push-up. If you guys like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let's get into it. To start off the video, we're gonna go over three main factors when it comes to your technique. So number one is going to be your overall body position and body tension throughout your push-up. So where our entire body is placed, both at the top and the bottom and during our push-up. Tip number two is going to be our hand and elbow placement. Again, a huge factor when it comes to getting a successful push-up. And tip number three is going to be range of motion and what's going to help you consider a good push-up versus a bad push-up when it comes to proper technique. So let's get started. Let's start on body tension and overall alignment of a push-up from the top to the bottom. When working with clients, I remind them that the push-up is consisted of a high plank first, and then the actual movement starts. So let's start there. So in terms of our hand placement, it's gonna be shoulder width apart. We're gonna step our one leg out and then the other. We're gonna make sure there's tons of tension or pressure into our feet as well as our hands so it's nice and equal. We're gonna squeeze our glutes, squeeze our core, and push away from the floor as well. So we don't wanna be sinking and relaxed. We wanna have tension nice and tight, squeeze it. So that is the top position of our push-up. Now to move on to the bottom portion. So we're gonna come down onto the ground. Again, having pressure into our feet and our hands nice and equal. We're gonna make sure we squeeze our core, squeeze our glutes. And we wanna make sure our thumbs are just on the inner parts of our chest where our armpit is. And then our head is positioned neutral. Again, everything is tight and squeezing, and this would be the bottom set of our push-up. Now to come up and down during our push-up, it is not just an arm exercise or an upper body exercise. You are still squeezing your glutes and your core and everything else is engaged. The more you squeeze, the easier and lighter your body is gonna feel. If you're loose in your core, it's gonna feel a lot harder and eventually break form and make this push-up not a proper push-up. So right from the top, like I said, we're gonna squeeze our glutes, squeeze our core, and we don't wanna be loose where there's a pelvic tilt. Making sure everything is neutral, including our head. We would eventually move ourselves down, keeping tension nice and tight, and then tension all the way up. Now, so that is the up and down movement. Another thing to pay attention to is how much you've shifted behind yourself versus in front of yourself. So a very common mistake is to position our shoulders behind our hands. This could be due to a couple reasons. Majority of it is just sore wrists. A lot of people don't have the mobility to be in that 90 degree. And then another one is just overall body proprioception just isn't there as much where you don't really know where you are in space. So an easy way to do it would be to film yourself so that way you can see exactly where you are stacked. So this is where we want to be in our push-up. However, I see a lot of the time, a lot of people setting up their push-up way back here. So if you look right here, my wrist is here and my shoulder is here. So we are not stacked on top of each other like we want to be. So if I were to go down to my push-up, you're gonna see my elbows do not bend at an ideal angle and my entire movement feels a little bit uncomfortable. So again, something to film yourself on so you can literally see exactly where your body's moving up and down. Now the same thing can apply by going too far forward. Too far forward, this is for people who definitely have flexible wrists. You'd be here. Now, this push-up does exist and it is a push-up variation. However, it is more advanced and a planche push-up, which I'll be covering later in time. So for this video, if you're someone who's looking to achieve their very first push-up or learn how to get better at push-ups, focus on shoulders stacked over wrists first, get those down, be able to do this comfortably for around 20 reps, and then we can move on to more advanced variations. So that sums up tip number one. In terms of being able to see it from the front, it would look pretty much just like a front plank here, coming down and coming up. Just to give you a different view, 45 degrees, going down and coming back up. One thing that I will mention that I just remembered to say is our feet position. When you're first learning your push-up, the wider your feet are, the easier it's gonna be. If your feet are nice and close together, it will feel a little bit harder. And again, that's for someone who's a little bit more advanced in their beginner level of push-ups. But if you're someone who's brand new, the wider your feet are, the easier it's gonna be. So I typically start with hip width apart, and if my clients need it, I'll let them go slightly wider just to make it a little easier to come down and up. Let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is going to be our hand and elbow placement. So this is huge when it comes to push-ups, and definitely one of the biggest things I see that makes push-ups a lot harder. So very simply, we're gonna put our arms out in front of us, just slightly wider than our shoulders, because we want these thumbs, if we were to bend our elbows, to come in right in that chest shoulder area, so right where that armpit is. So our thumb is gonna be in line with our armpit. Now, if you notice when I do that naturally, my elbows drop into a 45. If I were to do that and go out 180, that feels weird. It does not feel good, it does not feel normal, and it's something that's definitely gonna make your push-up a lot harder. So coming in, we want a 45-degree angle, we don't want 180, and we don't want nice and tight tucked to us. Nice and tight tucked, again, similar to the leaning forward, is a variation of a push-up, but just slightly more advanced as it's a tricep push-up, which makes it a little bit harder because we have less of the bigger muscle groups helping to kick in for that push-up. So for the conventional push-up, where it's gonna be more chest focused and the arms are gonna be a secondary muscle. So we're gonna be starting, again, shoulder width apart, coming in on that 45, and then coming out. Our hands, similar to the alignment in terms of our movement of up and down, we do want to make sure, again, that they are stacked right underneath our shoulders, because if they are not, like I said before, it's going to feel a lot more difficult and very unnatural. Now, although I'm saying these things as feeling unnatural, uncomfortable, there is also a safety reason for it as well. If you're doing these push-ups with that form, you might be at risk, or you probably are at risk of hurting your shoulder complex. So we do want to make sure that if we are trying to learn our push-ups, right from the start, we are trying to do it in the best way possible in order to avoid any injuries, because injuries suck and we do not want that. One more thing, in terms of pressure into the hand. Now, if you've watched my handstand series, which is linked on my YouTube as well, you're gonna remember that I say to have use of the entire hand, particularly the top portion. So yes, full contact with the floor with our entire hand. However, we do want pressure through the top portion of our hand and gripping the ground. Not only will this help you with your push-ups, but it's gonna also help you for more advanced movements like a handstand, which I know so many of us wanna get. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just focus on a push-up today. So really quickly, I'm gonna go back into my push-up position. I'm gonna show you what it looks like proper first, and then the other mistakes that are most commonly seen. So here we are in our perfect alignment position, shoulders stacked, our glutes are squeezed as well as our core. We're gonna come down, elbows are gonna go out at a 45 degree, and then come back up, 45 degree. That is a proper track of motion as well as elbow and hand placement. This is what it would look like if it is not the right placement. So let's start first with 180 degrees. So my hands are still in the same spot. I'm still squeezing, still in the right alignment, but as I go down, my elbows shoot out to the side. So of course, you can achieve a push-up in this position. However, when you do it and you're like, oh my gosh, my wrist really hurts when I do my push-ups, this is probably one of the factors contributing to it. Having that 180 degrees is gonna put a ton of pressure on that lateral aspect of your wrist, and it's gonna get sore very quickly. Now, if you perform your push-ups like this over a long period of time, then a wrist injury is coming your way, so make sure you do pay attention to making sure that the elbows are coming in on that 45 degree, because none of us wanna have hurt wrists. That is not a vibe. Now I'm gonna show you from the front what it looks like. So again, first push-up is going to be proper form. Going down 45 degrees, back up. Now if I were to go the 180, it's gonna look like this. So even doing that myself does not feel friendly on my wrist, does not feel friendly on my shoulders, and I also don't feel like I'm getting a proper muscle contraction, so I'm not able to actively recruit my chest muscles as well as my triceps, just because everything feels so uncomfortable and things aren't moving in the proper way they're supposed to. So those are some key things to pay attention to when you're doing your push-ups. If it doesn't feel like you're actually using any of your muscles and you're just like, this is hard, take a step back, film yourself, see what you're doing wrong, and refer back to this video on some of the things that I've gone over in order to help you with your push-up. So what we just went over was more of the elbow position, but I'm also gonna quickly go over the hand position as well, because they do go hand in hand. No pun intended. But basically, if your hands are too wide, then it's gonna cause a different type of push-up. So again, it's gonna be a different variation that could be more advanced. As with a wider grip, you can do things like archers or typewriters. However, for a conventional push-up, we do want the hands only placed shoulder width apart. If they're too narrow, again, that becomes more of a tricep push-up, or if they become really narrow, it becomes a diamond push-up, which is again, a more advanced version and recruits more of the tricep. So do make sure that for a conventional push-up, if you're a beginner, that you are just doing shoulder width apart. That's gonna help you the most. Moving on to our final tip, which is gonna be range of motion. Now, this is a huge one because there are a ton of people out there who believe that they're doing a full push-up. However, in fact, they're not. And that's totally fine. A lot of the time it's more just like what you see is what you think you're achieving, or in some cases what you feel is what you think you're achieving. But the best way to correct this is, again, videotape yourself. That visual feedback is huge when it comes to exercise. Visual feedback is one of the best methods that I personally use in my training. It's one of those ones where it's like when you see it, you're like, oh, that's what I'm doing. So regardless if it's strength training, calisthenics, mobility, anything like that, if I can see what's actually happening versus what I think is happening, that connect happens, and then I'm able to understand my body a lot better. And when I go to perform my exercises, it's an easier way for me to implement the form that I'm trying to go for. Proper range of motion is going to be our chest as well as the top of our thighs or quads touching the ground. So main things to focus on is everything moving together up and down our push-up. We don't want to wave, and we don't want one thing moving and not the other. So those are the most common mistakes that I see in the push-ups. I'm going to demonstrate them as well, just so that way you guys can get a visual representation. But one thing that I do want to say is that it's always quality over quantity. So if you're someone out there being like, yo, I can do like 500 push-ups, but your range of motion, it really is making it 0 push-ups, then it's no bueno. We wanna make sure that if you're doing 10 push-ups, 5 push-ups, 100 push-ups, that it is the proper range of motion no matter what, because at the end of the day, quality over quantity. So we're gonna get into that push-up position, hands just slightly wider than shoulders so that our thumbs are by our armpits, feet shoulder width apart or hip width apart, making sure to grab the floor with our hands, tight core, tight glutes, moving down 45 degrees. We're gonna touch with our chest and our legs, and we're gonna pop it back up. We'll go for one more, everything moving all together. Touch the ground, back up. So that's what you wanna see. So you're gonna see that my chest touches the floor and that the tops of my quads touch the floor and everything moves in the exact same time. Now, if we were to see a push-up that happens in a wave, it's gonna look like this. So everything stays the same at the starting position, but you're gonna drop your hips first, then your chest, and then roll back up. So this is a lazy push-up. It feels like you're doing everything, and you're definitely having parts of the push-up working for you, but all in all, it's more of a momentum type push-up rather than a technique type push-up. So for this one, this is no bueno. It would count as no rep when it comes to full range of motion and proper technique. Next push-up I'm gonna show you is another common mistake that I see where either just the legs are touching or just the chest, but they're not touching at the same time. So for example, we would have the most common arch push-up where our core isn't being used and we're just tapping the ground with our hips. The other one is we might start here, but we only come down and our hips don't move. So in terms of this one, the reason why it can be a little confusing is that there is tactile feedback in the fact that you are touching the ground. So you do feel like I'm going down to the ground, I feel it in my legs or my chest. However, you're not feeling it together. And if you were to film yourself, you'd be like, oh, half my body's not moving. So that's another reason why that visual feedback piece is very important, because you can see what's actually happening versus what you think is happening. Now, the last mistake that I often see is when the head goes down. And this one's also confusing because visually you feel like you're getting close to the floor because your face is right there. However, the rest of your body has barely moved. So for instance, if I'm here and I tuck my head down, my chest and my legs are coming nowhere close to the ground. However, my face is, so it feels like I'm doing a full range push-up. So again, that visual feedback is gonna be super important in order to be able to see your entire body position. Now, this is again where I'm coming into quality versus quantity. If you were to do any of these wrong variations of push-ups for tons of reps, for sure you would get fatigued, you would feel tired. However, you're not gonna be building that strength as much as doing a full range push-up. So If you are someone who can do just 5 full range push-ups, do that for multiple sets and give yourself lots of breaks rather than trying to go for big numbers like 20, 30, 40, 50. Keep it small, keep it proper, and slowly work your way up in order to build your reps up into that proper range of motion for your push-ups in order to get the most out of your exercises. Now that we've covered the proper technique of our push-ups, we're gonna go through a couple modifications / exercises that you can use and incorporate into your own exercise routine in order to help achieve your very first push-up. So let's start with 2 modifications. You can either do an incline push-up or a modified push-up. Now, a modified push-up, some people actually call this exercise something else that's completely wrong, and you guys all know where I'm going with this, but they call it a girl push-up. We don't like that. We don't use that vocabulary here. It is a modified push-up. Anything that is assisted or modified is exactly that. It's not necessarily given the word of, oh, you're doing an assisted pull-up. It's a girl pull-up. Nope, it's not. It's not a girl push-up. It's not a girl pull-up. It's not a girl anything. Because when it comes to exercise and things to perform in the gym, it has nothing to do if you're a girl or a boy. It has everything to do with your own capabilities. So if you do need to modify with a band, with an incline, with lighter weight, with different tempo, that is completely okay. And it has nothing to do with being a girl. So I just wanted to say that because you guys know that I'm obsessed with that message. And I do want to make sure that if you are a female who is trying to learn a push-up and you're not quite there yet, that does not mean you're weak. That does not mean anything, because there are a ton of other people out there in the world who are doing push-ups improper, and they are actually, in fact, not as strong as they like to feel. So before I babble on too much, because I could literally talk about this all freaking day, let's get back to the exercises in order to help you get your push-up. Starting off with incline push-up, today I'm using a box, but you can use anything elevated, whether it's a bench, a barbell set on a squat rack, or the Smith machine, or literally anything elevated is perfect for this exercise. So we're gonna start with the same form as we would on the floor. Hands slightly wider than shoulders, stepping our feet out, hip width apart, squeezing our glutes, nice tight core. We're gonna go down at a 45 degree, touch the box, and then come back up. Down nice and strong, and back up. Now, as you get more advanced and these become easier, we can simply flip the box, make it a little bit shorter, exact same form, and then slowly bring it down. Now, the other modification we can do is from our knees, which is going to be a modified push-up. Biggest thing here is that we want to make sure that our entire torso, basically from our waist to our shoulder, looks exactly the same as our regular push-up. The only thing that is changing is that we're dropping from our toes to our knees. So let's just do that position really quickly. We're gonna start from our toes and then drop to our knees, keeping our hips nice and flat. We are not going to drop to our knees and push our bum back so that we're in a tabletop. We want to start in that flat position and simply just lower, and everything else stays the same. So our core is still going to be squeezed. We're still going to go all the way down, full contact with the ground, and then come all the way back up. The only difference with a modified push-up versus a full push-up is now we're looking for full contact from basically our knee to our chest on the ground. So for instance, if we come down in our push-up, I don't want to see this where our bum is stuck nice and high. I want everything squeezed nice and flat, pushing up nice and strong into that push-up. So the reason why I like incorporating both is because the incline push-up, starting from here and bringing ourselves slowly down, helps in order of actual range of motion and overall body awareness of how straight and strict we are. However, from the knees, I like this one because it's perfect for being able to be aware of our pelvis when we're moving in a space, as well as, again, getting that full range of motion. So this one I find good because we're close to the ground. Clients can come all the way down to the ground, feel full contact, feel where they are in space, and then push themselves back up. It's a very good exercise, again, in terms of actually getting full range of motion down to the ground. The incline exercise, I'll show you really quick. This, because we're starting at an angle, we now know where straight body position is, and we can get full chest and back up. It mimics a full push-up because we are still on our feet and slowly coming down and gradually bringing everything down. The knees, depending on the client, can throw some people off. However, if you do just make sure to isolate that we are keeping that body nice and straight, up and down, it is a perfect modification for a push-up and something that I definitely implement in not only my routines, but also my clients' routines. Moving on to our second exercise, we're gonna be doing dumbbell chest press. Now, a lot of people assume that if they can do a dumbbell chest press, why can't they do a push-up? For instance, I'm someone who's say 130 pounds and I'm dumbbell pressing 25 pounds. That's a lot of weight, that's 50 pounds in total. However, because I'm 130 pounds, I'm not 50 pounds. So it's not gonna be that direct correlation of, oh, I lift heavy, why can't I do a body weight exercise? Doing body weight is tricky because it is essentially your body weight that you're having to lift. Now, keep in mind, I'm not asking you to carry 70 pounds in each hand in order to be able to achieve your push-up, because that's also unrealistic and unnecessary. Because a push-up is a full body exercise and we're getting that full recruitment and body tension from our glutes, our core, and our upper body, you don't need to dumbbell press your entire weight. You can do a percentage of your weight. So I would recommend when training, if you're going to be doing something that is a little bit of a lighter weight, make sure you're going up a little bit more in that volume aspect. If you wanna be going heavier, you can go anywhere between 6 to 8 reps, and that's gonna help you a little bit more in terms of your training for strength exercises towards those push-ups. So really quick, let's do a couple chest presses, and I'm gonna show you guys some tips and tricks while doing it in order to have it directly correlate with our push-ups. So we're gonna do 3 different variations of push-ups. I'm gonna do them all on the floor today, but if you do have a bench, you can do any of these on the bench. So we're gonna start with a flat dumbbell press. So we're gonna be making sure our elbows are at the 45 degrees, just like our push-up will be. We're gonna squeeze our core, squeeze our glutes, push directly up, and then come back down nice and slow. Now, whenever doing our dumbbell exercises, if we are trying to have it correlate and correspond with our body weight, we wanna make sure we're moving nice and slow. We're not just pumping up the weights super fast and uncontrolled. We do wanna make sure everything is done with purpose and with control. The next variation, this is gonna help with our glute activation and our overall torso tightness. We're gonna pop up into a decline. We're gonna squeeze our glutes, squeeze our hamstrings and our core, and we're gonna lift straight up and straight down. Up and down. The third variation, we're gonna pop back nice and flat. We're gonna bring these elbows in nice and tight into a tricep. We're gonna do a close grip press, up and down. Now, even though we have not done a close grip push-up, working our close grip press will help strengthen our secondary muscles in order to help us with our push-ups. Again, we wanna be nice, slow, and controlled. Another thing that I do wanna preface with dumbbell exercises, I'm gonna come close for this, is the angle at which we hold the dumbbell. So if I'm here, I want it nice and stacked and strong. I don't want it curved and I don't want it arched. Now that we've covered my top 3 tricks as well as a couple exercises in order to help strengthen your push-ups, let's combine it all together and create a little bit of a tips and tricks for you guys in order to help achieve your very first push-up or to help improve your push-ups. Tip number 1, start from the bottom of your push-up to gain the proper positioning for your hands. This is gonna be crucial. Like I said in the beginning, that elbow angle is literally everything. So starting from the bottom, feeling where that 45 is before getting into your push-up conditioning or your push-up exercises is going to be huge. Tip number 2, doing modifications during your workouts. I will modify my push-ups all day long in the gym if it means that I'm getting proper form and proper technique with my push-ups. I would much rather drop to my knees and get full range of motion than try to pump out any type of half reps, because at the end of the day, I'm not doing justice to my exercise and I'm not doing justice to myself. So modifications have nothing to do with your level, your strength, or your ability. So make sure that you never feel like dropping to your knees or adding incline directly correlates to being weak or unable. It just means that you're a smart trainer and that you know exactly what you need in order to get perfect form and overall get the most out of your exercises. Tip number 3, how to incorporate our exercises into our workouts and how to structure our routine if we are someone who's trying to get that upper body gain in something like a push-up. Now, you do not need to work your push-ups every single day. You do not need to be like, I'm gonna do 100 a day, because that is just unrealistic and you're gonna do an overuse injury, and that is not what we want. I would say safely, if you're someone who's wanting to focus on our upper body, I would make sure that you're working your upper body at least 3 days a week, and then maybe 2 lower body days, giving yourself full 2-day rest. Whether it's an active rest or a full rest, that is completely up to you, but I would recommend 3 days. Now, within those 3 days, it does not have to be push all 3 days. No, it does not. It can literally be a chest-focused workout. It can be then maybe say shoulders and arms, and then it can be back and chest. Now, that is someone who is trying to focus more on a push-oriented type program. If you are someone who's just wanting overall body strength and eventually their pull-up, which I will go over in a video coming up, then you'd want something more chest, shoulders and arms, and then back. Some day where you can just do a full dedication to either your chest or your back or your shoulders is going to give you overall strength in your upper body. But if you're someone who's like, I really want to get my push-up, I would definitely recommend that first split in order for you to help get that. Tip number 4, and I'm sure you guys saw this one coming because I did mention it throughout this video, is videotaping yourself. Having that visual feedback is going to be huge when it comes to working your push-ups. Being able to see what angle you're at for your upper body, the angle of your shoulders, as well as the elbows, as well as the overall range of motion is going to be massive when it comes to perfecting your push-up. Then we have tip number 5, which is a very simple tip. Have fun and be patient. Push-ups, again, even though they're body weight exercise, they are hard. So do not feel like you should get it like that. They are much harder than a lot of people assume. So be patient with yourself, have fun with your training, and make sure that you just stay dedicated to the process because that is the most important thing. Don't feel like you're giving up. Don't feel like you're too weak to do push-ups. You are able, you are capable, and I know you can do it. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Comment below if you want me to break down any of my other exercises or perhaps do another refresher on plyometric push-ups or other advanced variations. But that is it for now. Good luck with your workouts. I hope you guys implement everything that we've learned today, and good luck with your push-up.